Hi, welcome to the February 17th, 2017 special UK edition of the Intuit Developer Friday. It's not morning Hangout. I'm your host, David Leary. I'm the Intuit Small Business Ecosystem Evangelist. You can follow me on Twitter at David Leary. You can follow Intuit Developer at Intuit Developer. Today we have a special guest, one of the Small Biz Hack London API partners, Estimote. Peter is here. He is the developer experience lead at Estimote. He's going to teach us and tell us all about the Estimote beacons. Do you refer to them as beacons? Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Beacons.
Hey,
okay,
everybody.
And just before we jump in, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we jump in, and give the rest of the folks that are still dialing in a chance to connect to the meeting. So one thing is, we just announced last week the Small Biz App Showdown is coming back. So we will be running the Small Biz App Showdown for any apps that get on apps.com from August 16th to August 15th. We're giving out $100,000 again. We'll take the top 10 finalists to QuickBooks Connect, let you pitch in front of the accountants and small business customers. This is coming. Make sure your app is live and launched on apps.com, and you can start participating in this contest. So that is ramping up. The other announcement is we do have the hackathon. That's why some of you are attending this, to learn about Estimote, so you get that head start and you're off and running when we do the hackathon. We'll be in London this hackathon Saturday and Sunday, March 4th and 5th, 2017. You can get your tickets. The hackathon is free. The first 25 people that show up to that day do get an Amazon Echo to either hack on or just take home. So you could get to keep that. So this is definitely go to smallbizhack.com and sign up for that if you have not already. And then the other big thing is the even bigger event that we have going on when we go to London is on the 6th and 7th of March. We have the QuickBooks Connect London event. So QuickBooks Connect is a celebration of small business. You're going to have accountants there, small businesses there, developers there. So it's the entire QuickBooks ecosystem. So as a developer, you have an interest to go. A lot of the developer team is going to be there offering help, and we're going to have developer sessions, but your real interest in going is to connect with the accountants, right? So an accountant can take your app, one day roll it out to one of their clients, then a couple months later, after they test it and vet it, they might roll it out to 30, 100, 150 clients. So there's a big ripple effect if you can build those relationships with those accountants and nurture those. So there's definitely a vested interest in you attending this. And if you go to quickbooksconnect.com/UK, you can get a 30% discount if you use JOIN, JOIN, and you get 30% off. So hopefully we'll see you guys there at QuickBooks Connect also, besides the hackathon. And one last thing, we will continue this series of doing the Hangouts. So every week, you can find them on the events page, developer.intuit.com/hub/events. On that page, right now we're doing 2 a day. We're doing a special UK edition for the hackathon. We're bringing all the API partners. And then we're also doing the Hangout on the air, the normal one, which is essentially, right now we're doing all encore presentations of QuickBooks Connect, and from September in San Jose, we're doing encore presentations of those presentations. So please check out the events page and don't forget to come to those. So without further ado, I'm going to stop my screen sharing here. Whoops. I almost hit leave the entire conference. That could have been bad. No, I'm staying. I want to hit stop sharing. That could have been bad. See, they make too many buttons red on Blue Jeans. It's a little dangerous.
Yeah.
All right, stop sharing. There we go. Perfect. Okay, welcome, Peter. Can you see me? Can we hear you?
Yes, hello. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Since other than Estimote has a very colorful logo, and I understand there's beacons, tell us about Estimote. I'm not really for those of us that are not familiar with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, those developer companies out there, building tools for developers to enable them to add different parts or features to their apps, I don't know, payments. Or last week we've heard about adding texting and calls, conferencing, all this kind of APIs and toolkits for developers. At Estimote, we're doing something similar, except we sort of I like to think about it as we want to give you an API so that you can access the physical world around you in your app. So yeah, our mission is basically to enable developers to build apps that sort of interact or like recognize the world around it, right? And so this is like a little bit tricky, of course. You know, it's like smartphones or like mobile devices, computers, as they are, don't really like understand the physical world around us, right? Like maybe you can fire up a camera and do some image processing. But yeah, so like basically our approach is you stick a bunch of like we want to help those apps a little bit, right? So you stick a bunch of beacons, we call them beacons. So essentially like tiny Bluetooth enabled, Bluetooth equipped computers that keep projecting information like into the air. And then your smartphone also has Bluetooth, so it can like gather this information, and we expose like a bunch of APIs for developers so that they can just like hook into it and build some like physical world context into their apps, right? So like the like this is all like very fine and high level, but like a very simple example is like you stick this at the entrance to your venue or like at the entrance to your home, and you stick another beacon like someplace else, and your app receiving like signals from those beacons like suddenly knows exactly where indoors you are, right? So like the very like sort of like the most simple, the most like easy to sort of understand benefit from using this technology is just like indoor positioning indoors, right? Let's bring GPS and like blue dot indoors and give apps like the understanding of your position, right? Or you could take some of our smaller beacons. We have those like sort of beacons light, we call them stickers. They are like much smaller, so you can pretty much like stick them to objects. Like, you know, this is probably something you want to stick to some static object or like on a wall. And this because of its like smaller form factor, you can just like put it on like, you know, whatever that's like mobile. And suddenly, so say you stick it to your like computer or your wallet or your car keys or something like that, and suddenly like your apps gain access to the information about what objects are around you, right? So we basically tag the physical world with those beacons, and then you can access this information in your own app. So we basically almost like give you an API to understand the physical world around you in your app, like be it for understanding the user's position, or be it for understanding what objects are around. Like there is like a ton of options and ton of possibilities.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of room for creativity here, right? Because it's kind of this new realm, right? There's these inanimate objects. There's the Internet of Things, but then there's a lot more inanimate objects that don't connect to the internet, and you're kind of starting to get in that gray area of like, how do you get those things connected?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, this is like a way to start. Just like, you know, in the future, we can imagine like those beacons being just like built in. Maybe in the future, like 5-10 years from now, when you build like a new office building or office space, like the beacons are just like built into the walls, and like the whole space is sort of like digital friendly, right? And like apps can actually consume information, and it's like just there. And like same with like physical objects, right? Maybe you can start like building those beacons into the objects. But for now, like the great thing is about this technology is like it's all wireless, it's battery powered, it's Bluetooth Low Energy. So, you know, we have like a small battery inside, and it'll like still run and broadcast for like 4 or 5 years. So we can just like stick it around, just like put it, you know, all around, super easy to install, and suddenly like you get that information, right? You can build apps that it's sort of like taking the apps to the next level, right? It's like apps that actually understand the world around us. So yeah, the opportunities are endless. You know, we almost like to call that like we're building an entire new operating system, like the same way Microsoft or Apple gave developers this operating system to build like apps. And then we started seeing like word processing apps and image processing apps and like games and all that stuff. Like we want to like build this sort of like an operating system, but something that's more like sort of tied into the physical world. Something that developers can later like consume. And, you know, I think like there's this joke like we developers have, it's like give us the source code of the world and we'll like fix all the problems or something like that. So yeah, we're like sort of like our thinking is very similar here, right? How can we enable developers to solve problems in the physical spaces, right? Not just like something on your screen, but yeah.
Well, it sounds like Estimote, you're really trying to solve something it's much bigger, right? Your long-term goal is much bigger than just, oh, here's a little beacon. Like, I think from me hitting the website, I was like, oh, you could put it on like retail shelves and somebody could get information about a shoe, but you're obviously thinking about a much bigger thing out there. So that's really exciting. So I would love if you could get like maybe do a small demo or show how Estimo works from maybe the customer's perspective or the end user's perspective, then jump into, hey, here's how you get signed up. Here's how you do the developer program. Really show us how to like get on board and start using Estimote and start writing code.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So, beacons, like in and on themselves, are like a very sort of like developer-focused product, right? Like you said, like we're trying to build something like really big here, and we can't do it all like alone. There is like so many problems you can be solving in physical spaces, and problems we see like our customers solving in physical spaces, right? Like being it museums where you have like this smart like interactive guides that you don't need to scan any QR codes or like put any like numbers into the audio guide. You just like walk around and it knows exactly where you are, what exhibits are around you, and it can like provide you with contextual context like in the app, right? Or like in your ear if you're just like listening into it. So yeah, we excited to just like put it out and see like what developers can build. So let me just like start and like show what it takes to get started understanding the world around us in an app. So my background is actually in iOS, but I thought it will be fun to show something with Android here. So this can go terribly wrong, but let's just get started, I guess.
In the spirit of hackathons, right?
Yeah. It's I see it all the time, like people coming into the hackathons, and well, I just want to try like this new technology, right? Like I'm a web dev. I want to like try building my first mobile app or something. So I guess I'll try something similar here with like. Stretching my comfort zone, showing you something for the Android. So yeah, all our developer resources, you can find them at developer.estimote.com. You don't need any like API keys or like anything to get started, right? We do provide some cloud services, mostly for managing your beacons, but like inherently, like everything happens in the mobile app, right? Because it's the mobile app that actually sort of receives the Bluetooth signal from the beacon, parses it, and then it's like up to you, up to the developer to figure out what to do about it. So without further ado, let's just.
And when you say mobile app, right? The users don't have to use a special Estimote app. They can use whatever my app is. I'm the developer. It's my app. They're using my app for numerous other reasons. Now my Estimote functionality is just bonus.
Absolutely, yeah. We actually don't want you to use the Estimote app, right? We want developers to build we want the museum to build like their own audio guide and just like add Estimote SDK in there because we can help you with like all the Bluetooth like low level stuff, parsing the packets, like dealing with like this sort of like low level stuff, and then it's like only like your creativity what you can do with it. So awesome. I have like a fresh Android project here. I like the only thing I did is added this Estimote SDK dependency, and I've run it because hey, I'm on the new like 12-inch MacBook, and it takes like 2 minutes to compile an Android app. So if you're a developer, maybe not the best choice. But yeah, let's jump into the main activity here, and like basically your gateway to all the interactions with beacons is a beacon manager. So by adding my beacon manager declaration here, and let's go ahead and create it. Manager, new beacon manager. So then whenever this screen actually pops up, so I'll use the onResume method here. So like the life cycle of the activity in the Android. My background is in iOS, but I did some research and some reading. So whenever like the application screen, this activity so comes on the screen, so the user say opens your app, we'll actually want to start discovering beacons, start listening for those beacons, right? Start like the Bluetooth radio in your smartphone to start gathering the data from the physical world and like learn more about it and take our actions. So this is something we'll use like a ranging API for this, and then we have to tell this API which beacons we actually want to listen for, right? Because like in a world where like everything is beaconified, you might only be interested in your museum beacons, for example, right? So this is what I will use a region for. I'll just like declare a super simple region for now and call it all beacons, and I will basically forego any sort of filtering. I'll tell like give me all the regions out there.
So at a hackathon, this is going to be really important. If 15 teams are building with beacons, they better be very careful not to pick up other people's beacons.
Absolutely, yes, that's a great remark. So each beacon has its unique identifier. Like in this case, we're using the iBeacon packet, which like the structure of the identifier is actually three things. There is like a UUID, there is a major number, and there is a minor number. So really just like three parts of like something that consists, like makes an identifier, and those are those three fields here. Right now, I'm like setting them all to null, which basically means I don't care. But yes, if you're at a hackathon, you probably only want to listen for your own beacons. So you want to make sure that you're actually putting the correct identifiers in here. And you can discover that with our like utility Estimote app, which you can download from the App Store and from the Google Play Store. So I'll say I want to start discovering all of my beacons, and this is when I would like have to pause for a little. And basically, like if you think about the mobile apps, there are like certain things that the user has to agree to in order for the app to gain access, for example, to the camera, right, or to the microphone, or as pertains to beacons, to the location. Like basically what I said earlier, right? Like one of the like very sort of like specific things you can do with beacons and just like understanding the world around you is understand where the user is in the building position, and this is like very powerful, right? Letting the app know or like track me as I like move around the world or a building or something like that. So we basically have to be nice here, and we first have to ask the user for the permission to access the location. And this is Android, but it's actually the same on iOS, the same on like pretty much like every major platform. So yeah, this because like there are often like some concerns about like what about privacy and all that stuff, and it's actually like everything has been like taken care of and accounted for. This technology is entirely opt-in, so there is like no such thing as beacon just tracking you without your knowledge, or like you first like have to agree to it.
Yeah, and you're not sticking the beacon on yourself, right? So it's not like you go to a museum and they're sticking a beacon on you.
That's correct, right? You have this app that you have to download, and you have to like opt in, agree. Hey, yes, I'll let you access my location as I move around like the museum or the retail store or the office, for example, if you're building some kind of an app that will help you locate your colleagues or something like that. You have to actually like agree to that.
Got it.
So yeah, this is also like a pretty can be a pretty daunting process to obtain all the permissions on Android at least. But yeah, this is where our SDK comes in, and it's called System Requirements Helper. Yeah, this thing. So we'll do check all permissions, and if we have all the permissions, then we'll start ranging. So we'll start discovering, like scanning for the beacons and discovering the beacon data. If not, we'll use system requirements checker to ask the user for the permissions. And I'm using like check with default dialogues here. Like in an ideal world, again, like access to location is very powerful, and like many users are very reluctant to actually grant this access. So in an ideal world in your app, you actually want to maybe like provide some nice onboarding and explain to the user, hey, well, we need to access your location, or we want to access your location, but in return, we'll like give you all this cool stuff, right? We'll navigate you around the museum. We'll help find you like those shoes you're looking for in the department store, like some huge mall, something like that, right? So in an ideal world, you would want to be like a little bit more sophisticated here, I guess. Okay, so we have that out of the way. So now the best part, which is actually telling the app what to do with all the data that like flow from the beacon to the app. So essentially here, when I create my beacon manager, typos. I'll use set ranging listener. Like again, we're using the ranging API here, start ranging, to discover what beacons are in range. So I'll use the ranging listener, tell the app what to do with all this data. So yeah, we have this ranging listener, and there's like a recallback method on beacons discovered, which gets us the list of the beacons nearby. And for now, I'll just log it to the console, and we'll see what it looks like. All right. All set. And this is the moment of truth. So yeah, like I'm showing Android here, but it essentially looks and like we made sure that our SDKs and our APIs are pretty consistent between platforms. So it actually works very similar on iOS, right? You also need to like check and request the permission to access the location. You also have to start ranging, use the ranging API to discover the beacons in range. You also need to define a region, and you might want to like filter for UIDs, majors, minors. Yeah, so my app right now is asking me for access to this device locations. I'll allow that. Oh, right. So I forgot one very important thing I forgot. And this is actually a good thing because we can talk about it a little bit more. So the really cool thing about like beacons and like the moment where like the really magical experience happens is your app can scan for beacons even if it's like not actively on screen, right? Of course, like the most value will like probably come when like the user is actually looking at the screen and you can adjust the content in the app or do something. But because this technology is like low energy, this is not some classic Bluetooth we're talking about where you have to like pair with all the beacons before, like you pair with your keyboard or you pair with like your headset. It's something that actually like uses very little energy. We can actually afford to keep the Bluetooth scanning running pretty much like all the time, right? So what we're actually doing is like we start a separate background service in our SDK to do all of the Bluetooth scanning. So the one thing I actually forgot to do here is to connect to that service. Because that service is actually doing all the scanning, which is something that would also enable us if we wanted our app to say monitor as you move around the space, even when you have like the phone locked and like in your pocket, and maybe just like report your position to some server, and then your colleagues can find you in the office, for example, right? That's something you can also do with this technology. That's the really magical part where you don't even like need to interact with your app. The app can just like silently like scan for all the beacons and all the Bluetooth signal from the beacons, even when you're not using it, and like do something about it. Like of course you don't have a UI to like present all the data, but yeah, you can maybe show a notification when somebody like enters the venue or museum, or this person like really likes I don't know, ancient Egypt. When they like pass by the ancient Egypt section in the museum, you can maybe like show them a notification, encourage them to actually make the turn, pop by and look into it. And this is also why like those permissions are like and the fact that this technology is entirely opt-in. This is why it's also like super important, right? Because like you get access to the user's location, like potentially even if they are not using the app. So I'll do the connect here to connect to the background service. Service with callback. And only then we'll actually start discovering beacons. Okay, and there we can see it in the logs. I'll just like do some filtering here.
Okay,
every second we essentially get information from the environment about beacons detected in range, the identifiers of those beacons, right? So we can like scan for multiple beacons, just like take a look what's nearby. And there's also this thing called RSSI, which is essentially received signal strength. So that's like another cool thing about this technology. Basically, like there is a mathematical function, right? The beacon broadcasts a Bluetooth radio wave with a certain strength. And this radio wave like loses its strength as it like moves through the space. And once it reaches your phone, it has some like certain received strength, like the strength of the Bluetooth signal. And this is essentially like a function of distance, right? Like the further away from the beacon you are, the weaker the signal. So, you know, if you try really hard, like you can do some stuff around that, right? So maybe trigger like certain actions in the app, or you know, like implement some logic in the app that depends not only on like what beacons are around you, but also how close to those beacons you are.
because you could get positioned pretty accurate, right? If you triangulate 3 beacons and figure out the distance, you can really nail down within inches of where somebody's standing.
Exactly. Inches might be like an overstatement, actually. Like this,
a little aggressive.
we're dealing with regular 2.4 gigahertz radio wave here, and you know, if you're like interested in physics, like there is a lot of things that can go like wrong on the way. Like the signal like bounces around the walls, and you know, gets like absorbed, and there is like a little bit of an interference problem. So yeah, it's more like meters or like feet. But just like what you said, if you get like signal from multiple beacons and like cross-reference that somehow, you know, like where those beacons are positioned in space, you can probably build like some simple in their positioning system, and just like profit from that immediately. All right, so you see, this is how easy it is to get started. Just like create your beacon manager, ask for the permissions, start scanning for beacons, and suddenly you get the signal from the environment. One more thing I wanted to show here is like another cool thing about those little beacons is you know, if you think about it, it's amazing. It's like it's so small, but it's actually like a mini computer. We have like, you know, our own sort of like system running on it, just like coded in C. And there's like batteries and the Bluetooth radio wave, but we also packed like a ton of sensors into it, right? So we have a temperature sensor, we have an accelerometer. So you can, you know, essentially like understand if this is like moving and like in which direction and how fast. Does it like accelerate? Does it decelerate? So we have that temperature accelerometer. We have a light sensor, so you can, you know, maybe understand if the room is like lit up or not. The lights are like all off. Or if you put it outdoors, you can maybe like understand if it's like day or night or something like that.
So that's all built in the big one. So the little one's just light Bluetooth.
So actually, the little ones also have the temperature and acceleration sensors. So yeah, this is pretty cool, right? This is so small, and like we still like packed sensors in it. This just like has more of them, right? We have the temperature and accelerometer, just like in the smaller ones, but we also have the light sensor. We also have a magnetometer. So you know, you can like detect the magnetic field, and like the Earth has its like own natural magnetic field. So maybe you can like understand if this is pointing north or south or east or west.
Okay, so
I'm sure I'm like
it's interesting because what I've seen is like people starting to do things with Arduino and Raspberry Pi and things like that. They get the sensors, they hook it up, then they got to kind of build everything from scratch. You're kind of out of the box. Hey, developer, here's this thing, and we have a really easy API to utilize it. And it's really exciting because one of the things I always talk about, I've been telling people, is hardware, right? That's kind of the next step is small business adoption of hardware. It's getting very, very cheap. And it's simple use cases, right? Imagine you have an ice cream store and there's the freezer, right? Well, if that freezer gets unplugged at the end of the night when somebody's mopping or sweeping, or maybe the power goes out, whatever it is, that ice cream melts and that small business owner takes a big hit. And that's a really important, like, that's all their inventory if that all melts, right? And so I've been telling people, I'm like, hardware is cheap now for $40, $60 US. Somebody could just make something like, maybe cheaper now. They just take an Estimote, stick it in the freezer, and it shoots off a text and lets the owner know, hey, the temperature dropped 5 degrees, you better go investigate. So they don't find out 8 hours later when they get there in the morning that all their ice cream is melted. And so like it's awesome because it's taking what I've told people is coming, and you've actually made it even easier and faster to access that. And that's the sensors, I think, is really, really exciting on this, right? From a small business standpoint, because there's a lot of things a small business owner needs to know about that currently they have to check by hand, and only huge enterprises were able to afford that type of monitoring now, and now you're bringing it really to the masses. It's really, really exciting. So you said, so it's temperature,
temperature, acceleration, light, magnetometer. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting something, but yeah, like it's all there in the APIs. Maybe let's just like, it's only a couple more lines of code, and
okay, great. That'd be cool
we'll be able to show that. Yeah. Here, like before, we used our ranging API just to like detect what beacons are in range. For the data from the telemetry packet, we'll use start telemetry discovery. Yeah, that's it. And we also need to add another listener here to tell our app what to do with all the telemetry data. So set telemetry listener. There we go. On telemetry is found. Yep. So let's print that into the console as well. Maybe let's tag it differently. Yep, and recompiling. Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. Like when we talk about like creating an API that lets your app understand the physical world around it, I think like sensors is like, it's super important, and it's like a very natural like sort of next step and extension of that, right? Not only understand like what beacons are nearby, and like by beacons we usually mean we tagged some physical space, or we tagged some objects with beacons. So when we detect beacons, we really want to detect like your position, or like what objects are nearby. But also, yeah, just like also, are those objects moving, right? Like, what's the temperature? Is it like light or dark? Like, we had this like pretty cool hack recently where somebody used the light sensor in those beacons to detect when a package was being opened, right? Like suddenly it was going from like dark to light, and you could like send a notification that, hey, somebody opened this package that you had them shipped, or something like that. Yeah, so like here in the console, we can see the telemetry data from the beacons here at our Estimote headquarters, just like flowing in. So we have the light readings, we have the accelerometer, we have data from the magnetometer, just like some battery data, more of a sort of beacon health check. Just like understanding motion. So this is also accelerometer. So yeah, I actually think I haven't forgotten anything.
Wow, this just like really opened up the use cases of Estimote, like in my brain, right? Like of the things I've always like wanted people to start building these types of things at the hackathon for small businesses, and I think like you're bridging that gap to make it that much easier to do. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Like that's something I'm personally like very excited about as well. And just like so, right now we're using this Android phone I have here, like a regular Nexus, because that's usually like the natural fit for beacons. Like a phone is something people carry with them like all the time, and we're sort of like already seeing this trend of mobile apps taking use of like all the sensors that are in the phone. So hey, let's just like add some data from the physical world around. But especially during hackathons, I've also seen people like almost like like also utilizing different sort of hardware and like receivers. So instead of phones, for example, people would take Raspberry Pis or I don't know Intel Edisons, just like add a bunch of this is just like regular Bluetooth packet, like bits and bytes that you can detect with any like Bluetooth capable device, not just a smartphone, but pretty much like anything that has Bluetooth, and parse it and like get access to it. So yeah, we've seen people doing that with Raspberry Pis. Say like just like installing Raspberry Pis in like conference rooms or spaces like that, and then those devices actually take care of gathering data. Like to your earlier point, for example, about like sticking beacons on people. We've seen that as well. Like somebody, I think it was like one of the hackathons we attended in London. I think it was like they won or like got like a second or third place, something like that. They've built a system where they like sort of like put beacons on the conference badges, and they had a Raspberry Pi like at the entrance, like it was like supposed to be installed at the entrance to the conference venue, and when you were entering the venue, it was automatically checking you in or something like that, right? So you didn't need to like install any app even. You were just like grabbing your conference badge, and the whole system was like detecting that you're there, like checking you in, things like that. So there is a whole section on our developer portal. If you scroll all the way down here, we provide iOS and Android SDKs, but yeah, like the community of like beacon developers and Bluetooth developers have come up with like a bunch of libraries for all those like other platforms as well, right? For Raspberry Pis, Intel Edisons. You could do it on your MacBook if you really want it. So yeah, it's something we're like seeing just like coming up at hackathons like all the time. Um, some like cool hardware hacks around Estimote beacons and devices like Raspberry Pis, for example. And it's like to your point, it's so cheap, right? Like you buy a beacon, it costs like a couple of dollars. Raspberry Pi is like what $20-$30 as
Yeah.
well, and suddenly you can have like this system that tracks the temperature, like how the sensor data changes, or like people coming and going, as is the case with this like conference sort of use case. So yeah, like the possibilities are like pretty much endless.
Now, how does Estimote hold up to like um, rain or moisture or pool water or heat? Like, what are some of the extremes on Estimote?
You mean just like if you can use it in like extreme temperatures or something like that?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is like a silicon enclosure here in the beacon, so it's like it's not completely waterproof, as in like if you would like drop it into water, it might not actually like end well for the beacon. But at the same time, water also heavily absorbs the Bluetooth signal, so that probably be pointless. But yeah, people are installing this outdoors because this is a silicon enclosure, so it fares very well against like rain. It's like it's pretty much like splash proof, you could
Okay.
say. When it comes to like the temperature ranges, I think like we've seen somebody install beacons at the top of like a very high mountain where there's I don't know, it's like minus 30, minus 20 degrees Celsius. So yeah, and like I think like in our internal test we went like as high as like 60 degrees Celsius or something like that. So yeah, you can really use it like in a lot of conditions and
Yes.
in a lot of environments.
That's awesome. Cool, cool, cool. So, do you have a sample app or you could show on your phone of like kind of something that either you've built or maybe some other developers have built?
Uh, I yeah, I don't think I have anything like that
Okay.
that I could just quickly grab and demo. That's yeah, that's some good feedback for the future.
So with you being like, obviously you are a customer of small businesses, right? Like think about like your interactions with a small business over the last week, 2 weeks. Is there any situation where you've been out there and you're like, wow, if that guy just had like a beacon or detected this, or if that small business owner they had this data, I could have had a better experience as a small business customer. Maybe I would have spent more money. Can you kind of maybe paint a picture of a situation where I'm sure for you, everywhere you look, you're like, they should have a beacon, that should have a beacon, that should have a beacon. But can you think of a
Oh yeah,
specific
yeah,
one
yeah.
maybe for a small business?
Totally. Like I think one of my favorite ones from like we've actually built like sort of an example app. You can just like go ahead and download it. So like it was basically our take on like a perfect loyalty sort of program. Right now, I have this like super slim wallet with just like my credit cards and my ID in there. And like whenever I go to like any kind of a store, they like always have a loyalty program and they always like ask me to sign up for it. And then they give you like this card that you have to like carry around with you and like, remember about it. It like makes your wallet all bulky and all that stuff. So yeah, we basically just like this is like so clunky and so like 90s. Let's try to like inspire people and solve that. And we've built like our own sort of an example where you just download an app and there is a beacon in the venue. And ideally you'd want to like integrate it with your POS system, but in our like example, in our prototype, we just like built an iPad app for the cashier. So basically like what happens is the moment you enter the venue, your avatar, like your image with your name, pops up on the iPad, like that the cashier has. So you can just like approach like the checkout, or say like a coffee shop, right? You can just like go there, like ask for a coffee, and then say, hey, by the way, I'm Peter. Like, can you add me in like my points or like something like that? And yeah, they just like they already see you're there. They see your picture. They see your name. So they just like tap on the iPad and grant you your points, right? You this is like something I was like mentioning earlier, because like my phone is in my pocket and I have like the sort of loyalty app that I like signed up for. But because it all works in the background, because it's like so low energy, like I don't even have to like take it out of my pocket. I don't have to like go to any like barcodes and scan anything. Just like the app detects that I'm there, it notifies like the iPad or like the cashier that I'm there, and then with like a single tap, they can actually like grant you like reward points or something like that. And it's like so magical, right? You get your like
Yeah,
you get your stuff and like you don't even have to lift a finger.
that's cool. And yeah, there's just it's really you start thinking about all the use cases and it's a little bit mind-boggling. I can see like just thinking about beacons and all the interactions and all the things you do at an airport, right? Like you put beacons on your luggage so that way you can kind of maybe you could know if it's on the plane or not before you take off, right? There's just a lot of use cases just at an airport, never mind small businesses. So yeah. And what's the craziest thing you've seen somebody build using your beacons?
Oh, the craziest thing. Let me think. Mm, yeah, I don't really know. Like, what would be the most crazy? Uh, like, I guess this was like a little bit like, yeah, out of like maybe what we have in mind for this technology. But I think like somebody like speaking of like the sensors they utilized, they actually like built this sort of a like glove. They just like put a bunch of stickers in there, and like they were able to like track how your like hand movements and all that stuff. So basically like stick a bunch of like cheap sensors into a glove, and like you suddenly have almost like this like virtual reality sort of like controller, something like that. I think it was pretty crazy because this is not like essentially what we have in mind for this technology, the technology, but yeah, somebody just like like during a single hackathon, like in a few hours. Put a bunch of like cheap sensors and hardware, and they've built like this like sort of sophisticated hands like tracking sort of experience that you see like entire startups are like trying to do that, and entire companies, and he just like hacked it overnight. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, and where's Estimote in regards to like market release? Like, can any developer go buy Estimotes off the shelf now, order them, or is it still kind of? I know we had Justin from Jibo on at the time. The Jibo robot is still kind of like, he brought them, to the hackathon. He's like, these are only 2 of the 50 that exist in the whole entire world. Like, are you guys kind of at that point now where you're ready for general consumption?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we've been doing this for like more than 3 years right now.
Okay.
So what's essentially what you do is like you go to our website, you can order just like development kit. It's like 3 beacons for you to like get started playing with. So yeah, you just like get this. We ship it like the same or the next day. You get it within a few days, and you're like ready to start hacking. And like you saw the SDKs and APIs. There's
Yeah.
like it's really super simple. You just start scanning it. So like it's really like on the developer to just like come up with all the like amazing ideas and like start prototyping and like trying different things. So I'm pretty sure like we have maybe like seen 10% of like what people are gonna be like building with this technology, and like new ideas like keep coming up. And I think like yeah, we're really onto like something new here. And then once you're like ready with like you have your proof of concept, you like validated some idea, you're like really excited about it. We also have like enterprise ready like certified hardware you can like go buy a few bucks of and deploy it in your venue, just like put it in production. So yeah, it's definitely ready for for the market.
And so those you're going to be bringing those developer kits to the hackathon.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll have like a whole bag of like beacons and hardware, just like giving it out, and yeah, like excited to see what people are gonna build. Like we're, like you're asking me like all those questions about like what people are doing with it, and it's like people are doing so
So
like
much. Okay.
different like things, and yeah, it's just like every time like we go to a hackathon like that, and like we see like all the ideas and like people going about implementing them. It's like it's super inspiring for us because yeah, we just like we give you like this basic hardware and a basic set of APIs, and like it's really like the people doing all the amazing work.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Amazon's going to be there with Alexa, right, or the Echo, and the Echo's fine. But now if you pair that with your sensing abilities, right, now some the Echo is pretty amazing, right? It can do a lot more things, like a lot more things for you instead of you asking it to do things. It might start informing you, a little bit more. And it seems small, but you could even see like an alarm clock functionality. If it knows you're not there, don't start the alarm clock. Like it's just little teeny things that make a long difference. So that's amazing. I'm really excited about this. I can definitely even see how it ties into some of Nexmo's stuff from last week, right? Going to use cases for small business, like, hey, send them a text, let them know the temperature in the freezer dropped, right? So people can utilize multiple APIs, right? I also think there's ways for this to work with QuickBooks, right? And things like that. If we know that customer's in the store or they're close or you're close to that customer, I've kind of made jokes like, what if your Fitbit would vibrate when you walk by a customer that owes you money, right? So you can talk to the QuickBooks API and you can be alerted when you're by a customer that owes you money. So there's such a range with the hardware, and it's so cheap. And that's what I think is the most encouraging thing, is it's just going to open up. And I think once the accountants start understanding this, because I think the accountants are understanding, okay, apps are efficient, SaaS is efficient, cloud is efficient, data moves back and forth. But I think once accountants realize like, oh, I can help my client solve 100 other small business problems through the use of hardware, because I don't think accountants and even small business owners understand like this hardware is almost free at this point. It's so cheap, and the benefit is just insane. I mean, if you're the accountant and you put a freezer sensor in your client's freezer and you save them a catastrophe, you're the hero as the accountant. I mean, you get to be the hero, and you probably can even charge them more. They'll be willing to pay you more, right? So this is great. I agree. You're probably just scratching the surface, and I can't wait to see what people build. I really want to see what accountants think. I think accountants will be really wowed by this. It'll be pretty cool to see. Any last thoughts? Any closing thoughts? Is there anything people should do before they get to the hackathon if they want to build on Estimote to kind of save some time? Like as far as registering on your site, etc.?
I don't think so. Like, yeah, you saw it. Like, it's all super simple. No tokens, no, like nothing required. Just like go ahead. And so, yeah, like really, like my only advice would be just like I almost think like the biggest challenge here is just coming up with the idea, right? Like there's so many possibilities. So just like think up front, like yeah, I don't know, taking a shower or something like that. What you want to build, and now that you know what this technology is about and like what are the possibilities, just like try to like process it, come up with something, and then I'll be like joining you at the hackathon, happy to help and like solve all of the problems. So that shouldn't be the issue. I guess like the most difficult thing will be just like coming up with an amazing idea.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you very much, Peter. Really, really appreciate you being a guest on the Friday morning hangout. Well, it's morning for me. It's just past lunch for you. So I will see everybody. I'm actually headed to London next Saturday. So I'm getting in almost a week early for the hackathon. I'm going to do some sightseeing and tourist stuff. But then we'll be at the hackathon, and we're 11 days from now, I think, right? No, 14 days. What are we at? 17. Yeah,
Pretty,
so it's
pretty
about
soon. Yeah.
14 or 15 days. Yeah, about 14 or 15 days from now, we'll be sitting there together. I will be seeing developers build on the Estimote beacons, and I'm very, very excited. So thank you very much, Peter. Thanks everybody for tuning in. For those of you who didn't tune in live, this will be up on YouTube, and hopefully you've watched it there. Thanks a lot, Peter. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.